Sarah Martinez stared at the pile of empty pizza boxes scattered across her kitchen table, her hands trembling as she carefully folded each cardboard piece into neat squares. She had read somewhere online that desperate mothers were feeding their children cardboard mixed with water when they had nothing else left, and tonight she was about to find out if that was really possible. Her 5-year-old son Tommy sat in the living room watching an old cartoon on their cracked phone screen, completely unaware that his mother was preparing what might be their last meal together. The electricity had been cut off 3 days ago, the water would be next, and Sarah had already sold everything valuable they owned just to keep a roof over their heads. But what happened in the next 60 minutes would change their lives in ways she never could have imagined, and by the end of this story you will understand why sometimes our darkest moments are actually preparing us for our greatest blessings. Let me take you back to how Sarah ended up in this impossible situation, because her story could be any of ours, and that is what makes what happens next so incredibly powerful. Sarah had been a successful marketing manager at a tech company in Austin, Texas, making $70,000 a year with full benefits and a bright future ahead of her. She had dreams of buying a house, sending Tommy to the best schools, and maybe even starting her own business someday. But life has a way of testing us when we least expect it, and for Sarah that test came in the form of a company-wide layoff that happened on a rainy Thursday morning in March. The company called it restructuring, but for Sarah and 47 other employees it meant walking out of the office with a cardboard box and 2 weeks severance pay. She thought she would find another job quickly with her experience and qualifications, but month after month the rejection emails kept coming. The job market was brutal, and for every position she applied for, there were hundreds of other qualified candidates fighting for the same opportunity. Her savings dwindled from thousands to hundreds to nearly nothing as she struggled to pay rent, buy groceries, and keep up with daycare costs so she could continue job hunting. By November, Sarah had been unemployed for 8 months and had exhausted her unemployment benefits. She had moved from their comfortable 2-bedroom apartment to a rundown studio in the worst part of town. She had sold her car, her jewelry, her furniture, and even Tommy's toys just to survive another week. The shame was overwhelming, but she kept telling herself that things would get better, that this was just temporary, that somehow she would figure it out. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, Sarah began to realize that she was facing a reality she never thought possible. She was becoming homeless. The final blow came when her part-time job at a local diner ended because the owner could no longer afford to keep extra staff. Sarah had been working there for 3 months, earning just enough to buy basic groceries and keep the lights on, but even that small lifeline was gone now. Sitting in her empty kitchen with nothing but empty pizza boxes she had found in the dumpster behind a restaurant, Sarah was preparing to do something that would have been unthinkable just 1 year ago. She was about to feed cardboard to her child because she had no other choice. As Sarah carefully tore the pizza boxes into small pieces and tried to figure out how to make them edible, she heard a gentle knock at her door. It was almost midnight, and Sarah rarely had visitors, especially not at this hour. Her first instinct was fear. Who would be knocking at this time of night, and what did they want? But something about the knock seemed different. Somehow it was not aggressive or demanding, it was almost hesitant, as if whoever was on the other side was as nervous as she was. Sarah wiped her hands on her jeans and walked slowly to the door. Peering through the peephole, she saw an elderly man with gray hair and kind eyes holding what appeared to be a large bag of groceries. He was well dressed, but not flashy, wearing a simple sweater and khakis, and he had the kind of face that immediately put you at ease. Even though Sarah had never seen him before in her life, she cracked the door open, keeping the chain lock in place, and asked what he wanted. The man introduced himself as Robert Chen, and explained that he lived in the neighborhood and had noticed that her lights had been off for several days. He said he was worried about her and her son and wanted to make sure they were okay. Sarah was suspicious at first because in her experience when things seemed too good to be true they usually were, but there was something genuine about Robert, something that made her feel like she could trust him even though every instinct told her to be careful. Robert explained that he had lost his wife 2 years ago, and since then he had been looking for ways to honor her memory by helping others in need. He said his wife Mary had always believed that we are put on this earth to take care of each other and that no one should ever have to face their struggles alone. He had been driving through the neighborhood earlier that evening when he saw Sarah through her window, and something about the scene had reminded him of his own struggles many years ago when he and Mary were young and facing their own financial hardships. What Robert did next changed everything. He handed Sarah the bag of groceries, and when she looked inside she found fresh fruits, vegetables, bread, milk, eggs, and even some of Tommy's favorite snacks. But more than the food itself, it was the way Robert presented it, not as charity but as one neighbor helping another. He told Sarah that he had bought too much food for himself and hated to see it go to waste, and would she be doing him a favor by accepting it? Sarah broke down crying right there in the doorway because for the first time in months someone had shown her kindness without expecting anything in return. But Robert was just getting started. He asked Sarah if she would be willing to share her story with him over a cup of coffee, and as she talked he listened without judgment, without trying to fix everything, without making her feel ashamed for the choices she had made. He simply listened. And when she was finished he told her something that would stay with her for the rest of her life. He said that sometimes we have to lose everything we think we need in order to discover what we actually need, and that her current situation was not an ending but a beginning. Over the next several hours Robert and Sarah talked about her background, her skills, her dreams, and her fears. Robert learned that Sarah had always wanted to start her own business helping small companies with their marketing, but had been too afraid to take the risk when she had a stable job. Now that she had nothing left to lose, Robert suggested that maybe this was the perfect time to take that risk. He offered to help her create a business plan, connect her with potential clients, and even provide some startup funding to get her off the ground. But the most important thing Robert gave Sarah was something money could not buy. He gave her hope. He helped her see that her current situation was not a reflection of her worth as a person or as a mother, but simply a temporary circumstance that could be changed with the right support and determination. He reminded her that some of the most successful people in history had faced similar struggles, and that adversity often creates the strength and wisdom needed to build something truly meaningful. Over the following weeks Robert became not just a helper but a mentor and friend. He introduced Sarah to other small business owners in the community who needed marketing help but could not afford the big agencies. He helped her set up a home office in her tiny studio apartment, and taught her how to present herself professionally even when working from such humble beginnings. He connected her with other single mothers who had successfully started their own businesses and created a support network that Sarah had never known she needed. The first client came within 2 weeks, a small bakery owner who needed help promoting her business on social media. Sarah worked harder than she had ever worked before, staying up late after Tommy went to bed, learning new marketing techniques, researching her client's industry, and creating campaigns that would actually make a difference. The bakery owner's sales increased by 30% in the first month, and word began to spread about the talented marketing consultant who was available at affordable rates. As Sarah's business grew, so did her confidence. She realized that losing her corporate job had forced her to discover talents and strengths she never knew she had. She was more creative, more resourceful, and more determined than she had ever been when she had the security of a steady paycheck. The desperation that had once felt like a curse now felt like fuel, driving her to succeed in ways she never would have attempted when she had something to lose. Within 6 months Sarah had built a client base of 12 small businesses and was earning more money than she had made at her corporate job, but more importantly she was building something that belonged to her, something that no one could take away. The work was challenging and sometimes scary, but it was also incredibly rewarding because she was helping other small business owners achieve their dreams while creating a better life for herself and Tommy. As Sarah's business continued to grow, she began to understand something profound about the experience she had been through. The night she had been preparing to feed cardboard to her son had not been her lowest point, it had been her turning point. Everything that had happened before that moment, the job loss, the financial struggles, the fear and uncertainty, had been preparing her for something greater than she could have imagined. When she was in the middle of it, Sarah realized that Robert had not just helped her start a business, he had helped her discover who she really was beneath all the titles and roles she had previously defined herself by. She was not just a marketing manager or a single mother or an unemployed person. She was someone with unique gifts and talents who could make a real difference in the world when given the opportunity to do so. The success of her business allowed Sarah and Tommy to move into a better apartment, and eventually into a small house in a safe neighborhood. Tommy was able to go to a good school and participate in activities that Sarah had thought would never be possible again. But perhaps most importantly, Sarah had learned that security does not come from having a job or money in the bank. It comes from knowing that you have the skills, resilience, and support system to handle whatever challenges life might bring. Robert continued to be part of their lives, not as a savior but as a friend and mentor. He celebrated their successes and offered guidance during difficult times. He taught Sarah that the help he had given her was not something she needed to repay, but rather something she could pay forward by helping others who found themselves in similar situations. 2 years after that night with the pizza boxes, Sarah had built her marketing consultancy into a thriving business with over 30 clients and 3 part-time employees. But she never forgot where she came from or the kindness that had changed her life. She began volunteering at local food banks and homeless shelters, sharing her story and offering hope to others who were facing their own dark moments. Sarah also started a program called Second Chance Marketing, where she provided free marketing services to small businesses owned by people who were getting back on their feet. After facing homelessness, job loss, or other major life challenges, she partnered with local nonprofits to identify entrepreneurs who had great ideas but lacked the resources to promote their businesses effectively. Through this program, she helped dozens of people build successful enterprises and create better lives for themselves and their families. The program grew beyond what Sarah had ever imagined possible and began receiving recognition from business organizations and community groups. Robert was there to celebrate every milestone, reminding Sarah that success is measured not just by what you achieve for yourself, but by what you make possible for others. The little boy who had once sat in a dark apartment while his mother prepared cardboard for dinner was now thriving in school and learning valuable lessons about resilience, compassion, and the importance of helping others. What makes Sarah's story so powerful is not just that she overcame adversity, but how she overcame it. She did not succeed by pulling herself up by her bootstraps or by refusing help from others. She succeeded by being open to kindness, accepting support when it was offered, and then using her success to create opportunities for others to do the same. Her story shows us that we are not meant to face our struggles alone, and that sometimes the help we need comes from the most unexpected places. The night Sarah was folding pizza boxes thinking she had reached the end of her rope was actually the night her real life began. It was the night she learned that rock bottom can be the foundation you build your dreams on if you have the courage to accept help and the wisdom to pay it forward. The stranger who walked into her life that night did not just save her from hunger. He showed her a different way to live, a way that prioritizes connection, compassion, and community over individual achievement and accumulation. Robert's act of kindness created a ripple effect that extended far beyond one family in need. It sparked the creation of a business that now employs several people and helps dozens of small businesses succeed. It inspired a program that has helped countless entrepreneurs get back on their feet. It showed Tommy that there are good people in the world who care about others, and that he should always be ready to help when he has the opportunity to do so. Sarah's story resonates with so many people because it touches on universal fears and hopes that we all share. We all worry about what would happen if we lost our job, our home, our security. We all wonder if we would have the strength to keep going if everything fell apart. We all hope that if we ever found ourselves in desperate circumstances, someone would care enough to help us get back on our feet. But Sarah's story also shows us something else. It shows us that we all have the power to be that someone for others. We all have opportunities every day to notice when someone is struggling and to offer help in ways both big and small. We do not have to wait until we have solved all our own problems or achieved all our own goals to make a difference in someone else's life. Sometimes the most meaningful help we can offer comes from our own experiences with struggle and recovery. The pizza boxes that Sarah was preparing to turn into a meal for her son represent more than just desperation. They represent the moment when we realize that our old ways of thinking and living are no longer working and that we need to be open to new possibilities. The stranger who knocked on her door represents the help and opportunities that are available to all of us if we are willing to receive them with gratitude and use them wisely. As you think about Sarah's story, I want to challenge you to consider how it might apply to your own life. Are there areas where you have been trying to go it alone when you could benefit from accepting help or guidance from others? Are there people in your community who might be facing struggles similar to what Sarah experienced and could use some support or encouragement? Are there ways you could use your own skills, experiences, or resources to make a difference in someone's life? You do not have to be wealthy or have your life completely figured out to make a meaningful impact on others. Sometimes the most powerful help we can offer is simply letting someone know that they are not alone in their struggles and that better days are possible. Sarah started helping others long before her business was fully established because she understood that giving back is not something you do after you succeed, it is something you do as part of the journey to success. I also want to encourage you to think about your own definition of success and whether it includes making a positive difference in the lives of others. True success is not just about achieving your own goals, but about using your achievements to create opportunities for others to succeed as well. When we measure our lives by the impact we have on others rather than just by what we accumulate for ourselves, we discover a sense of purpose and fulfillment that cannot be found any other way. If Sarah's story has inspired you, I encourage you to share it with others who might need to hear it right now. There are people in your community and around the world who are facing their own pizza box moments, who are wondering if they have the strength to keep going, and who need to be reminded that their current circumstances do not define their future possibilities. Your willingness to share stories of hope and resilience can be part of the chain of kindness that helps someone else discover their own path to a better life. Remember that every successful person has faced moments of doubt, fear, and uncertainty. The difference between those who overcome their challenges and those who remain stuck is often not talent or luck, but willingness to accept help when it is offered and determination to keep moving forward, even when the path is unclear. Sarah's story shows us that our darkest moments can become the foundation for our greatest achievements if we approach them with the right mindset and support system. Take a moment today to reach out to someone who might be struggling, to offer encouragement to someone who is facing a difficult time, or to express gratitude to someone who has helped you along your own journey. You never know when your kindness might be exactly what someone needs to keep going, or when your story might inspire someone else to believe that better days are possible. The stranger who walked into Sarah's life that night changed everything, not just for her and Tommy, But for everyone whose lives have been touched by the ripple effects of that one act of kindness, you have the power to be that stranger for someone else, to be the person who walks into someone's life at exactly the right moment and helps them see possibilities they never knew existed. The question is not whether you have something valuable to offer, but whether you will be paying attention to the opportunities around you to make a difference. So as you go about your day, keep your eyes open for the Sarah Martinez in your community, the single parent who is struggling to make ends meet, the small business owner who could use some free advice, the elderly neighbor who might appreciate some company, or the young person who needs to hear that their current circumstances do not determine their future. Remember that kindness is not just about giving money or material things, it is about giving hope, connection, and the reminder that we are all in this life together. If this story has moved you, please share it with others, subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content, and let us know in the comments how you plan to pay it forward in your own life. Because when we share stories like Sarah's, we remind each other that no matter how dark things might seem right now, there is always hope for a brighter tomorrow, and there are always people who care enough to help us find our way.